Hello and welcome to the Gambling Files podcast, the podcast that introduces itself in almost the same way every time, but with subtle differences. Maybe you'll notice, maybe you won't. Maybe there's nobody listening. I'm one of your hosts, Jon Bruford, joined by your other host, Fintan Costello. Fintan, hello.
Hello, John.
How's it going?
Busy.
You're very low down in the picture.
Oh, am I? Sorry, I was. Hang on a second.
Yeah. Is it an executive slouch?
I had my feet up on the desk. I'm sorry, mate.
That is an executive slouch. See, and now we can appreciate your main.
But watch, I can do, or I can. Do this all the way, and let me get you level. All right,
you're still enjoying.
Actually, I think so. But the executive thing should be just be like a little bit taller than Jon, and just a bit more.
Fenton, everybody's at least a little bit taller than me.
There we go.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I just had to stick my neck up.
Our audio listeners are like, what the fuck is going on?
No, they would have heard you doing your cyborg mechanism. It was like the start of the Terminator. You had a similar look in your eye, so nobody go to YouTube. Fintan, we're back for another episode of the podcast. Well, I say we're back. This is...
well, I am here.
No, but we're introducing an interview that I did on my own.
Supple panther.
I am. If you didn't listen to the last episode, I just am a supple panther. He says what he means, Fintan. I can almost do the splits. I'm like 51.
Yeah. Can you?
Yeah, I really can.
Wow, I can't even touch my toes.
And I can do that. See, it's the benefit of a long body and short legs. I can touch my heels, like with my legs locked.
Long arms.
No, my upper body is perfectly standard. It's just my legs are short. Yeah, so it's a blessing and a curse, really. I mean, if I've got an itchy heel and I don't feel like bending my leg, perfect. Any other scenario, it's not as useful. Never mind. So, anything exciting happening in the gambling industry? I mean, we're not going to talk about the elephant in the industry.
Which elephant?
There's so much bizarre shit going on at the moment.
There is.
But the evolution playtech story is just like, oh my god.
The pot gone in the kettle black cube.
But it's just unreal.
It was one of my favourite comments I read online. Allegedly. Asterisks.
It's hilariously awful. But it's good timing for me because I'm writing an article about how the gambling industry has an image problem. And it's totally unwarranted. That's going to be my conclusion.
There's what's her face up in front of the select committee.
Yep, Grainne Hurst.
That's the nice lady from Grainne.
Do you know what though? I've been looking at that, and I saw
the quote.
No,
I saw the quote. I didn't watch the whole.
Watch the video. Watch the video. She actually does a really good job, and I mean that. I really do mean that. And I was as surprised as anybody, but she did a very good job in, frankly, a hostile environment.
Oh, for sure. Like you're set up for.
And I think that she may be guilty of being very literal in that quote that's been pulled out. Because it is fair to say that gambling addiction doesn't cause anything much on its own because it never exists on its own.
Oh, yeah. They could have workshopped that one a bit better.
But, it is predictable that the press would pick on that quote.
Yeah.
because the press never ever mentions gambling addiction being symptomatic.
Yeah.
Ever.
Look, all I saw was the quote. I winced and then moved on. But maybe it's coach. But like, it's, of course, that's the quote that we're going to pick up.
Yeah, and let's be honest, their press office or whoever's writing or preparing people for this, you know that question's coming. You know what's going to happen with your answer. So you need to get your narrative out there as well. And in fact, I've been doing interviews and stuff for the article that I'm writing about that, and about how things can be managed, and how narratives can be managed, because we just, despite the lady doing actually a terrific job, and I really mean that, you need to watch it. Despite her doing a terrific job, she's been absolutely just roasted over the coals by the press, taking shit out of context, not necessarily looking at the broader picture, but we don't have a right to reply. So we've just got, as an industry, just gotten fucked, basically.
Yep.
And it's not her fault. However, I think and I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. The industry needs image management, and the industry should come together to fund image management, and not in a shit lying way, not in a everything's great way, in an actual way that Coca-Cola would do it, that Mars would do it, that any self-respecting hospitality industry would do it. Like, when we get things wrong, because one of the things that nobody gets is that when you see a news story that's £10 million fine for such and such, they don't understand that happened 2 years ago. And that's never covered. And also what's never covered is what that business has done since then to make sure that doesn't happen again. Not because they're kind-hearted people, but because nobody likes paying £10 million or whatever the fine is, right? So you can actually take that and you can say, they got that wrong, but here's what they've done to make it not happen again. And we're not doing little things like that as an industry.
I think it needs to be bigger. Look, that's not going to cut through.
It's one jigsaw piece.
The other mistake the industry makes is the "what about them" argument. Of like, what about all the harm that alcohol causes, or tobacco, or the impact on the NHS for?
Yeah.
And it's not actually, like, if you think of somebody falling over drunk and dying, or the horrific impact on families that an alcoholic parent or something causes.
Yeah.
And nobody's blaming Diageo or fucking whoever for that. That's like, he's just an alcoholic, blah, 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 right? How did the alcohol industry get to that point, right? And so there's a lesson in there of market positioning. Same with cigarettes. In a while, probably cigarettes probably less recent because of the whole cancer cover-up. But the what about them argument doesn't hold because nobody cares. It just sounds weak.
Unless we go us as well, and we can be like, well, you think gambling's bad? We sell booze too.
Vapes.
Yeah. You can buy smack in our toilets.
And I think there's that issue. Like, I think that's always a weak argument. And then I agree with the offshore, like the players will go offshore. But that horse has to bolt before anybody will believe you. Like, it's like, if you look at the Netherlands or Sweden, I think it is, like, or Germany, like, there's some crazy numbers now in terms of channelization. And it's only when it actually happens and there's data saying they're all offshore now, will anybody take action.
But the thing is, though, right, what you're saying, you're right. But as an industry, we could be battering the media with this information. We could be battering the media with, This is happening in Sweden, Holland, Germany. These are the figures. This has actually happened. In the case of the Netherlands, you can quote the regulator. The regulator's been so utterly transparent with this. And I'm not dissing the BGC for this, because the BGC's role realistically is a lobbying group. It's not an image management group. This isn't what they do. I'm saying that we could do this as well. And as an industry worldwide, we do so many good and positive things as well that we can't shout about, because if we do, we're accused of whitewashing every friggin' time.
No, the answer is really simple. You just make gambling cool. And, social media gives you ability to reach everybody in a particular country. And some smart PR, some good creative, some creator influencer-led activities, it'd be quite easy to just.
It's got to be more. It's got to be more subtle than that, because you've got to think about generational change.
But what I mean is, it wouldn't, like, if you think of, okay, let's say we're the KGB and we're trying to influence the US elections, it'd be that approach, but you're influencing gambling, right? That's the right way to do it.
Think of it in terms of the media.
That will be a very effective way of doing it, I should say. No.
Think about it in terms of the media. Think about it in terms of industry representation in the media, right? Okay. Probably the most famous gambling adjacent movie of recent decades, I think it's fair to say, probably Ocean's 11. Right?
Okay.
And it was a fun film. Who's the villain?
The casino.
The gambling operator. Who are the heroes? The people that are stealing from the gambling operator. Literally, a bunch of crooks are our heroes, because the casino industry might as well be wearing a fucking Nazi outfit. That's how bad we are. And don't get me wrong, it's a fun film and everything. Do you know, like, that to do the scene at the end when all the lights go out on the strip, the producer, Jerry Weintraub, because he'd been a promoter for decades and he'd put all these acts on Vegas and all of this sort of stuff, he was able to get that done in real life, not a special effect, by just phoning all of the people that he knew on the strip and saying, can you turn your lights out at this time? So this is a guy who knows all these operators, who is I'm not going to say he's pro-gambling, I can't speak for him and he's dead now, unfortunately, but pro-casino, pro-hospitality, pro-entertainment. The guy was a legend, interviewed him, awesome. Not in Detroit. Anyway, but even in his movie, the casino's the villain. And for generational change, that kind of thing has to shift around. Just saying.
Because they're all punting their brains out on the crypto exchanges anyway, so.
Well, it's not for me to be
critical. From a
critical.
generational perspective, they're not even thinking about casinos or sports books.
Yeah, casinos and sports books are a lot safer, kids. I hate to say that, but it's
There's
true.
no leverage. Yeah.
So anyway, look, before I tell you who's in this episode, right? Because you weren't here for it.
Go on.
I need to talk about the sponsors for a minute, all right? Because they make this possible.
I think you should.
No, I am.
They do.
That's what I'm doing.
You should. Yeah, no.
My stomach keeps rumbling, though, but I'm not hungry.
So does mine, because it's nearly my dinner time.
But mine might be wind. That's what worries me. Well, are there any sponsors you want to talk about?
I'd like to talk about Optimove.
Oh, yeah.
They're a great bunch.
Yeah, seem like nice
gambling
lads.
industry's #1 CRM marketing platform.
They're serious about their technology, Fintan.
Super serious. Doing AI before it was cool.
Cool.
They work with the majority of the Power 50. They
50.
work with huge proportion of the industry.
Huge.
Not just for big operators.
No.
Small operators too. Startups.
Small.
They've got a whole startup incubator process as well, which is really cool. The guys who explained to me. Amazing kit. It just works. Everyone's using it for a reason. Use it.
And any promotional things they do?
Oh, yes. If you use the link in our bio or our show notes or somewhere like that, and you will get a month free on your first year. But look, just tell them you sent us, book the demo. Don't worry about the month free. Just book the demo, have a chat. Let them know you sent us. It really does help with renewals, which are coming up soon. And
It's
we
true.
need to jam that sales pipeline for them. So don't let me down now. Don't let me down.
Yeah, you know when Fintan begs, it's serious. I've literally never heard that before. He's never been serious with me. But there's also, other sponsors. I'm just going to
Yes.
mention one of them now.
Go on.
EveryMatrix. What I like about
Yes.
EveryMatrix, right? What I like about them is that they deliver advanced turnkey platform technology to the global regulated iGaming and lottery industries with outstanding results. What's your favourite thing about them, Fintan?
Follow that, you fucker. Thanks, man.
Is it that they power the world's biggest brands? Or is it
That will
that
be
they
one of the
solve
reasons.
or is it that they solve your biggest challenges? Or is it that they take business to the next level?
Well, here's.
Or
Oh,
is it that with EveryMatrix everything is possible? Which one do you think?
so look, here's ultimately right. If I had to pick a platform, why wouldn't you pick them? Right? Because they can localize. They've got people in every country. They can localize the product to your market, your customers, your demographic, your sporting needs. They can do everything. You know, their casino, their casino aggregation, their sports, but like it's all there. Um, they've plenty of big live reference clients in lots of different countries that are doing extremely well, and it works. Like they're growing, they're doing some really cool stuff. Like there's
Big
a
names.
press release every couple of days. Press release every couple of days with new clients, big names. UK horse racing's just gone live or went live a few months ago. That's a big one. Super
Plus,
interesting.
they
Like, yeah, they're brilliant.
employ Mark Schmidt, friend of the podcast.
They do. Lots of friends of the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mark's a good
it's
guy.
true. It's true. It's true. But finally, Fintan, our last but not least sponsor is Clarion Gaming,
Sure is.
organisers of the mighty Ice, which is in
Behemoth.
Barcelona 2026, January the 19th, 20th, 21st. We'll be there. Are you
The
going to be
quote,
like
the quote from
swanning
Ice,
around? Sorry, Fintan, what were you saying?
the quote from Ice Barcelona 2025 that really stuck with me was somebody turned around and said, "Been to all the conferences. The great thing about Ice is everyone's here to do business," and I think that's very much a statement of intent.
Yeah.
And it really matched up with what I saw. But yeah, I'll be swanning about, but we'll also be doing our thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll be doing the Gambling Book Awards and Get Joti.
Oh, Gajoti. Yeah, that is big. Tell us about Gitjoti, Fintan.
Get Joti, let me just, I've got it written out here. It's the Gambling Industry Trade Journalist of the Year.
Award.
I think we need to workshop this, John. I think we can give this a chat GPT and maybe just get it down a little bit.
I don't know. I like Gajoti. It's honestly, it's going to catch on.
So apart from the Gambling Book Award, which we realized was a massive gap in the market, and it's a hugely unrecognized, under-recognized segment, and based on the authors and the books we've been talking to and reading, it's phenomenal depth and quality of writing.
Yep.
We also felt that the gambling industry trade journalists are underappreciated. It's a fast moving industry. There's a lot going on. Things are always changing. And the journalists who are really doing great writing, great reporting, great journalistic acts, journalism, I don't know the best way to describe it, need to be praised, elevated, and celebrated. And so we're doing that as well, and that's going to be really fun.
Yes, it is. I'm very, very close to finalising the venue. So we will be able to share date and time quite soon.
Ooh,
it's exciting.
Very exciting.
Sponsorships of that are available because we've also got to cover those big cash prizes.
We do. Otherwise, John's going to be losing a kidney.
Fucking hell. I don't know if one of my kidneys is going to cover that. You might have to take them both. And then we're going to have to fundraise for a dialysis machine. Do you know what I mean? It's like...
Got a cheeky... We'll chop you up for parts, John. Don't worry about it. We'll make it happen.
I'm not sure I'm going to be that valuable. But that's why you have kids, right?
Harvesting. Oh,
kids, if you're listening, I'm just kidding. And Al, look after that right kidney for me, little fella. There's a good lad.
Yeah. Plenty of water. Yeah. No pop.
Yeah, less of that Vimto, young man.
So, who do we have in the podcast?
That's a great question, and it's an interesting episode, right? I'm going to have to refer to my notes here because it got technical. This conversation, I wish you'd been there because you know what I'm like when things get technical. I'm a dipshit. But we had a conversation with SBRnet President Neil Schwartz. Now, okay. Neil's all about sports fan data. That's the core of what the business does. It's like figuring out what sports fans are into and what they're doing and how that shifts, why that shifts. And so for the gambling industry, that's actually really interesting. So we talk about, what do we talk about? US sports gambling, obviously, and how major global sporting events like the World Cup, which is obviously coming very, very soon, how that's going to impact things. They, as a company, they're doing an annual, survey, an annual survey, which is really, really, it's a really interesting thing to sort of map. And there are just all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's about how they get data, what they do with it, and why that's important. And yeah, if you're in the sector and you're because that's the thing. Like, okay, so you've got your FanDuels, you've got your DraftKings and all of that, and they've got a section of the market, but sports fandom it's a very influential thing. It influences the decisions that teams make, which influences everything else that follows. And it's kind of, it's a really interesting part of the industry or industry adjacent that we haven't featured before. And I thought it was really cool.
That's really cool. Big fan of that.
So you would have really enjoyed it as well because, you're a nerd. So, I just had to put up with, no, I'm just kidding. It was terrific. And it is really, really interesting. So, without further ado, this is Neil Schwartz, president of SBRnet. Delighted to welcome another guest to the podcast. This is a first-time guest. Who knows? Maybe he'll come back one day. Maybe he'll just realize that he's got better things to do. But very pleased to be joined by Neil Schwartz, who is the president of SBRnet.inc. That's letter S, letter B, letter R, net, Inc. Neil, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
You know what? Thank you so much for having me. I know I'm joining you from across the pond, so to speak. Actually, not so to speak. I'm joining you from across the pond, and really excited about talking about some things. I know you're gambling is a big topic on the show, and I'd like to. I don't want to call myself any sort of an expert, but I do have a lot of data covering sports gambling.
We always try to say when people say they're excited to be here, we always try and temper that with a little bit of realism, and just say let's save that for the end and see how excited you are.
Well, the thing is, every time I go in, I spend a lot of time in class with students. I spend a lot of time, obviously, with brands, with teams, leagues. I know that, and everybody, kind of at the call or some point says, boy, you're so enthusiastic. You've got so much energy. You're so passionate about it. you know what? There's one or three simple words that drive me every morning when I wake up. And you know what they are? Sports are fun. We're not talking about life and death here. We're not talking about curing cancer. We're not talking about world hunger, world peace. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking sports. And in my humble opinion, there is nothing more fun than talking about sports.
When you said three words, I was like, first thing in my head was the three words that motivate you every morning. In my head, I just went, don't shit yourself.
No, I don't. That's not one I think about. It's no. I mean, I love what I do, and everybody tells me it comes through just whether it's on video here, like we're on, or I'm actually teaching a class this evening at a local university with graduate students who are in like an executive MBA program. So they work during the day, and then they have classes once or twice a week in the evenings, and then they've got some sort of weekend boot camp thing that they do. But it just comes through. This is who I am. I mean, it's not like I'm jacked up on coffee. What's that?
Where are you based?
I'm actually based in Boca Raton, Florida. Don't laugh. Every time I say Boca Raton, Florida, like, oh yeah, my grandmother lives there, or my aunt lives there, or some old person they know lives there. But no, it's a wonderful place. The weather is beautiful today. Is currently it's 70, actually certainly it's 81. My grandson who's sitting right here, I know he's itching to go swimming later. The weather here is beautiful.
Well, thanks for reminding me that all of my elderly female relatives are dead. 81 degrees.
It is, and it's only 10-15.
So that's 27.2 degrees in real degrees, rest of the world degrees.
I see.
That's considerably hotter than the average British summer.
Well, it's warm, and it also, I don't know if you've heard much about Florida summers, but they can be incredibly hot and incredibly humid. It's the summer. While now is a wonderful time of year. In fact, now through February, March, it's amazing. But when we start to hit April, we start to get to the rainy season. May rains a little more. June even more. But it's still hot. It's humid. But it's a wonderful place. I mean, I consider myself very lucky. I live on a golf course, and I love to play golf, and so that is convenient. Yeah, isn't it?
Did your house come first or the golf course?
Well, actually both came first. I actually got involved here. I actually, as I like to say this, I got here the old-fashioned way. I married into this. My wife had been divorced, married for a long time. I was divorced, not for the first time, I might add, but we met online. Interestingly enough, the internet. I'm responsible for a lot of things, and one of them is my wife, and we've been married 22 years. I've been with her 23 years. I absolutely adore her. And it's it's great. And I've got this value added thing. I get to play like 100 rounds of golf a year. So that doesn't suck either.
That's nearly 2 a week. That's good.
Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes I get out during the week and play 9 holes, and maybe I'll get to do that twice, but look, I'm getting a little older. I used to be able to play, 27 holes a day and things like that. Can't do that anymore. And I also work a lot. So there you have it.
I know some, I may have said this before on this podcast. There's some elderly gentlemen I know who are evil bastards. There's no getting around it. They're evil bastards. But they seem to be living forever. And the thing they have in common is golf. And I think it's getting out, being active in a social setting.
Yes.
Regularly.
Yes.
I bring all those things together, and you have the key for longevity, even if you are basically Satan in human form.
Golf is not. No, I understand. Golf's not an easy game. That's the one thing. I mean, it's not an easy game. But look, you're out in the sunshine. You're collecting vitamin D, I think it is, and that's that obviously is good for you. I'm a little bit tan. I'm probably not as tan as I would be, let's say, later in the year. But, I can tell you all the time when I'd be standing in front of people, I'm going into New York, or I'm going to Chicago or Washington, and everybody's like looking at me. I'm like, what are you looking at? I'm like, well, you're tan. I'm like, well, I live in Florida, and we're outside a lot. I mean, it's not like I'm going to, not like, I'm going to hit up a tanning place. This is natural.
That would be quite funny though if you did.
Yeah, well, our president does that, and he's unfortunately a big joke. So
I could not possibly comment.
You could.
Well, no, because it's like when you're at school and some other kid goes, "Your dad's a wanker," right? In my case, I knew my dad was a wanker. I'm allowed to say he's a wanker. You're not.
I see.
So that kid gets a slap around the face.
That's fair.
And I say, yes, my dad is a wanker, but you shut up.
Fair. That's fair.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I'm just trying to respect your house.
I appreciate that. I will respect yours in kind. Quid pro quo.
Fuck my house. So fundamentally, SBRnet it's about data.
It is
relating to sports fans.
It is. Every year.
I'm sorry. How do you get?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get your sports fan? Am I asking you to give me a trade secret here?
No, I'm not going to give away the secret sauce. No. But look, what we do is we do an annual consumer study via the internet every year of sports fans. We've been doing it since 2012. I haven't owned the company that long, but we've been doing the data since 2012. So what we do is we build essentially a model of what the United States looks like demographically of persons 13 years and older. And then we go collect responses from that model, using that model. And then we literally put them through a series of, they give us a lot of demographic information. They give us their sports fandom habits, viewing, social media, gambling, sports tourism, every secondary ticket purchases, things like sustainability. It is just an incredible wealth of sports fandom data. In fact, I venture to say that there's probably no other single source that has the amount of depth and breadth when it comes to measuring sports fandom. But we are all domestic United States. I will kind of just throw that in there.
No, that's cool. And you have several, not unique sports, but very US-centric sports anyway, so that makes perfect sense.
I have some international sports too. I mean, we have international soccer, so I've got English Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, CONCACAF. I do have, and we do have, of course, international soccer, which, the World Cup situation is going to be very interesting. In fact, I was just asked to write a short little piece for a book that's coming out talking about how the World Cup here in the United States, although it's going to be in Canada, United States, and Mexico, but what did I think was going to happen in terms of, economic impact, in terms of the increase in number of fans in soccer, in terms of, other important key performance indicators. People throw around the term KPI a lot. It stands for key performance indicators. So, I looked at 5 separate key performance indicators in order to be able to make my judgment on what I thought was going to happen post World Cup in 2026.
You can't just leave me hanging like that.
Oh, I can, huh? Well, so here's what we did. So we went back and looked at the last World Cup, not in the United States, but the last World Cup period. That was in Qatar. And so we looked at what occurred after that, after that World Cup. And we used a variety of different data sources. Number one, I started with Fandom. So we did, look, I don't want to get too sciencey on everybody, but there's a lot of science in what I do, a lot of art too, but there's a lot of science. So we basically went back all the way back to like 2017, maybe 2012 actually. And we did basically what they call a regression analysis. Again, I just got a little sciencey, but the idea is that it looks at the past to allow you to predict what's going to happen in the future. So we looked at what happened post 2022 after the World Cup in Qatar, and we looked at 5 separate key performance indicators. I looked at 1, fandom of Major League Soccer, MLS here in the United States. I looked at fandom of international soccer here in the United States. I looked at participation. were there more young people playing soccer? Did more, kids like my grandkids start to play soccer post 2022 World Cup? Then the last thing we really looked at was the sale of equipment, footwear, and apparel, all related to soccer. And guess what? Every key performance indicator went up. By the way, I've been in the sports business 25 years. I've been tracking things like this for that long. I have never seen every single key performance indicator go up, as a result of something like the World Cup. Look, the World Cup's a great event. Sports tends to be very event driven. Olympics, World Cup, Super Bowl, US Open tennis, and, the Masters. There's a lot of great events out there. There really are. And so, we looked at that, and what we did was we think that soccer is going to have another, let's say, big bump in following the 2026 World Cup, and we think it's going to stretch across all areas. So the economic impact will be, let's just say, measurable and will be significant. Fandom's going to go up. Last time overall fandom went up by, I want to say 19-20%, if I can get that right. Participation increased by 4%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it was. Sales of equipment went up significantly, footwear and apparel. What also went up significantly was the sale of licensed merch, jerseys, T-shirts, hats, all the things that relate to the various teams, whether you're rooting for Venezuela, Colombia, Argentina, or you're rooting for the United States.
Do you know, some of what you're talking about, I think people, the public, are much more they're much more clued into the impact of an event now,
yes,
than they have been previously.
Yes.
And much more welcoming to events on the whole as a result, because it has real measurable positive impact generally. It doesn't always, and FIFA has fucked up horribly in the past.
Yeah, they have.
But, and actually, I think you look at that huge tour that Taylor Swift did.
Yes.
And how they broke down the information for that, and how the news media reported that. An event like that, and how that was put to town councils, etc., even countries benefiting from a concert.
The average person doesn't realize about the economic impact that these big events do have. All they do is complain about. They complain about the traffic. They complain they can't get into restaurants. But on the positive side, the economic impact of these big events, including the Taylor Swift Eras Tour, is substantial, measurable, and there's a reason why there's a reason why every city pretty much has a convention and visitors bureau. There's a reason why most cities here in the United States, or even towns, have what they call a sports commission. Because why? They have found out that drawing sports events in, whether it's, a bunch of little leaguers coming into town to play a little league tournament, whether it's, a bunch of girls coming in for cheerleading, or whether it's, bringing in a big sports event, an all-star game, the Final Four in college basketball. It's big business and it's big money.
Neil, it's arguably the final piece in the Las Vegas jigsaw. They've had the conventions. I mean, the second biggest convention destination in the US, I think.
I think the Las Vegas Convention Center might actually be the largest. I don't know. There seems to be some dispute as to whether it's McCormick Place in Chicago, Las Vegas, Orlando. I know, there's a temporary situation in High Point, North Carolina for the annual furniture markets. But I think that it's a fight between Vegas and Chicago, McCormick Place and Las Vegas Convention Center.
But also just in terms of as a destination for conventions, it's in the top two for the US. In terms of hotel rooms in a small spit of space, nowhere else.
It's amazing.
Close. And the thing that it was missing was pro sports. Well, not anymore. And
you're right.
Now you're seeing sports tourism hitting Vegas as well. it's changing Las Vegas, which is amazing.
It's not just professional sports. The addition of the F1 race in Vegas, has also, and let me tell you, the people in Vegas, they'll tell you they hate the fact that the race is in town because, streets are blocked off. They can't get to where they need to get to and all that. But let me tell you, it is a big money event for the city of Las Vegas. And I don't see it going away. In fact, I'm doing an interesting thing tonight. I talked a little bit earlier about that I'm going to be teaching in a class of graduate students. In fact, there's going to be some representatives there from Formula One. And so the case that we're going to do, and this is not a real case, but what basically put it together is that if Formula One wanted to put another race here in the United States, where should it be? They've got one in Vegas, one in Austin, Texas, one here in Miami. Where would the next, where does the data lead you in terms of the next Formula One race? And it's going to be very interesting. I mean, it's, when you look at the data geographically, look, NASCAR has always been the number one auto racing draw here in the United States, still is. IndyCar has got its troubles. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're not growing. They're not gaining fans. They tend to skew out of what I would call the target-rich environment. They don't do well with millennials. They don't do well at all with Gen Z. They do okay with Gen X, and of course, baby boomers love it. But I hate to say it, I'm an old baby boomer. I am not. I'm not in that. Let's just say I am not in that big spending category anymore. I've acquired enough stuff. I've been lucky enough in the sports business to go to a lot of great events over the years. And, it's just not doing well. But Formula One is another story. Formula One has done an incredible job of marketing. I don't know. Do you watch the Drive to Survive series on Netflix by any chance?
I've not seen it, but I am aware of it and how potent it's been, especially in North America.
I mean, I didn't know even who Lewis Hamilton was. I didn't know, who Max Verstappen was. I didn't know any of these guys. I didn't know literally any of these guys. I didn't know one team from another. But I watched the first season. I was hooked. And then I watched every season. Now, every time there's a Formula One race, I come home. I won't watch the whole race, although I have watched a few. But what I will do is I'll watch the highlights on YouTube. And I'm always interested to see, who wins. And, the situation with Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari, leaving Mercedes after all these years. I know he's been wanting to drive, the big red car for Ferrari for a long time, but unfortunately, right now, Ferrari is in kind of a little bit of a downturn in terms of their technology, as opposed to some of the other manufacturers. Now, everything is going to be a big reset button hit in 2026 for Formula One. Number one, they're adding a new team, Cadillac. By the way, that's what's driving me to create this case study about, they're going to add Cadillac as a team to F1. So if we're going to add Cadillac, there's going to be the first U.S.-based, U.S.-owned F1 team. Maybe the U.S. market, is ripe for another event. And where would you put it? I'm not giving away the secret, though. I'm not giving away the answer in case one of my students. No, I'm kidding. One of the students is watching this. I don't want them to get the answer until they've done their homework.
No, this will come out a couple of weeks after the class.
I know that. I'm just teasing.
I'm just sitting here trying to think, where would I put it?
Well,
because I'm trying to
what we did was
links.
Yeah. What we did was we wanted to, first of all, understand who is a fan of Formula One, benchmark that against, let's say, IndyCar, against NASCAR. NASCAR tends to skew very old, by the way. In my humble opinion, NASCAR's got a problem. They may not recognize it right now because they tend to be a little bit on the arrogant side, but they've got a problem. IndyCar recognized they had a problem. I don't know what they're going to do about it, but but Formula One, different breed. But the thing is, though, that, looking at data, using data to understand how to make a better decision, because that's what everybody wants to do. Last thing you want is a flop. You go to a city like, Detroit, and, Detroit being, so U.S. automaker driven, that the fans don't react.
8 Mile Road.
Well, actually, the funny thing is that part of the country, the East North Central, it's called, that region, which makes up like Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, are, I would say in the top 2 of the regions of the country where I think a race might make sense. The question is, where do you put it? I mean, look, the West Coast would easily be a winner. The problem is, no, after California, you got Hawaii, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington. And I'm not sure that those states necessarily are the ones that could support the race. The state of California has already basically kind of said no. Stan Kroenke, the owner of the Los Angeles Rams, also owns that amazing stadium, SoFi. He offered to, be the, put a race in and, build a track like they did here in Florida, and use the stadium, as part of a track and all that. The city of Los Angeles said, no, we've got enough traffic problems. We've got enough, we've got enough going on here that we do not need, the 30 days of hell that would be created by a Formula One race. The economic impact would be unbelievable, but they don't need, I don't think, they need that kind of interruption.
Thing is, with Formula One, and I'm not speaking as a fan by any stretch of the imagination, I've seen the beginning of many races, but I've never seen the end of one because I always fall asleep quite quickly.
Right.
But what the Vegas race has provided,
yes,
and actually the Macau race to some extent, and a couple of the others. I mean, a lot of the courses are historic.
Yes.
But for new races, and the Vegas race being at night is key.
Yes.
It's the spectacle. So, like, honestly, if you were just looking at it in terms of spectacle, Hawaii would be fabulous.
but getting there is a
and the infrastructure on any of the islands would actually really struggle.
It would.
Because of the volume for a short space of time, the hardware, all the shit they need. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not even sure they have the hotel capacity. They've got resort capacity for sure, but I'm not sure they have the raw like convention space like Vegas does. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Formula One, and I'm probably going to be wrong on this, but I think Formula One was the first of the, let's say, the higher end racing leagues, Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, to do road races, especially road races at night. I think the first road race might have been in Monaco, actually.
Monaco's been there for decades.
Forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And, I don't know how the actual drivers feel about it. But I do know that, look, you watch the Monaco race and it's really very interesting. And, they show all the yachts in the harbor and they show, all the beautiful people at the parties and, they have made it very aspirational. Now, I don't aspire necessarily to have a yacht in the harbor or to go to any of those cool parties because I am not a cool guy, but there are other people that are. And, the hedge fund guys, the finance bros, I can go on and on here.
I want to go back a bit here, right?
Yep.
You were talking about you look at the demographics of the US populace and your sample for your survey
yes
reflects the demographics of the US as a whole.
Right? Correct.
What for your survey, 2 questions. 1, what sample size do you use? And yes. 2, if it's a pretty in-depth survey, how do you incentivize it, or do people just do it out of the goodness of their hearts?
No, most of the people that do it are on what they call a panel. So they are engaged with a panel company. So for every survey they fill out, they get points, and then the points are then translated into they can purchase things, whether they can get gift cards, whatever it was they want, but they get something. They are incentivized. I don't control the incentives. I don't control. All I control is one. I wanted a sample size this year of over 7,000. I got 7,050. Next year, I'm probably going to go to 8,000. That's all I'm concerned about right now. Now, just because I'm going from 7,000 to 8,000 does not, I repeat, does not make the data more accurate. That is a common misconception about data and polling and research. Just because you have a slightly larger sample doesn't make it more accurate. But what it does do is that it allows you to get to subjects that are a little bit more niche, a little bit more fine, smaller sample. So, for instance, when I ask people from the WNBA about their sustainability habits, do they care? Do they recycle? What does sustainability mean to them? I don't end up with, below, I have a threshold of 30 responses. If I don't have at least 30 responses in any one particular cell or any one particular data point, I can't report it. The data is just too unstable. So, I told you at the beginning, I think what a lot of people don't understand is that, research like what I do and what anybody does is part science, part art. I'm not sure how much of each, probably it's close to 50-50, although some may say it's 75-25. Science drives everything. But science does drive a lot of this.
We read a lot about now, as a data guy, I'm saying this expecting you to correct me and guide me. We read a lot about things like bias in data. Now,
yes.
When we read about bias in data, are we reading about bias in the interpretation of data or bias in the collation of data? Like, how do you ensure that surveys, I don't care what anybody that disagrees with me on this is a fucking moron. Surveys are incredibly difficult to do well.
You're right.
To be concise and to
You're
get
right.
the exact information that you are actually looking for.
You're right. You're right.
See, you're not a moron. I've always said that about you, Neil.
What can I tell you? Well, the first thing is, number one, we do a lot of back testing on our data. So I look at other data sources that are out there and I look at my data and compare. Now, am I concerned so much about, I like to use this metaphor all the time. Am I concerned as much about the tonnage? The answer is no. If somebody shows that they're up 10% and I show that they're up 5% or 7%, you know what? I'm not as concerned about that. I'm just concerned that my data shows that they're up as well as the comparison data shows they're up. So the trends, I'm really always interested in the trends. I want my trends to make sure they line up. I'm less concerned about the volume and tonnage. And I talk about this all the time. A lot of people get caught up in tonnage. Don't. That's a common mistake that people make. It's not always about the most people. It's about the best people. So you want people who are more likely to try your product, more likely to attend a game live, more likely to stream, more likely to gamble, more likely to travel. I think you get the idea here. But so that's what we look at. But the other thing that's really important, and I learned this, by the way, very early on when I started in the research business, that there's what they call random sampling, and then there's random sampling. Now, random sampling is, tried and true, but I do my random sampling in what they call we do a selective random sample. So what we're doing is when they build a bridge, do you know any architects or engineers by any chance, JB?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Just so happens my daughter worked for one of the largest stadium construction companies here in the United States. And they built a lot of stadium, and she loved it, by the way. So that apple did not fall far from the tree. But the one thing she always told me was, before they go into a project, before they're pricing, before they start doing everything, the architect builds a model, a scale model.
Yeah.
And why do they do that? Because they want to take the scale model and they want to see how it will fare against, wind surfaces and surface tensions and concrete tensions. And there's all sorts of things that have to go into that. Well, that's what I do. I have basically built a model of the United States population based on the ages of persons 13 years and older. I then collect the data based on age, income, gender, ethnicity, geography, and I forgot one more, marital status. So I take that, I have this giant matrix. And then as the data is coming in, I am looking at the matrix to see, okay, I don't have enough African Americans. I need to sample more. I don't have enough Hispanics. I need to sample more. I don't have enough women in, let's say, younger women. I need to sample more. So I sample more till I get what I need. And then I do something called weighting. I weight the data up so that it is reflective of the population for persons 13 years and older. So again, it's a lot of science. Luckily, I'm pretty good at science and pretty good. I mean, I am not a data scientist. I do hire one. I have one that works for me, but it's really important that people trust where the data is coming from. And believe me, that's one of my biggest challenges. People say, "Oh, it's survey data. How good can it be?"
Well, yeah, because...
Or why don't you buy it and try it and let me know?
No, I remember seeing an American Gaming Association survey a few years ago.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, the gambling industry is full of fairly intelligent people.
Fairly.
And this survey said, I looked up the, what's the word I'm looking for here? I looked up the methodology. I don't know. I looked up how they did it.
Got it. That's methodology was the right word, by the way.
And it said basically this survey was taken from a sample of American population age, and the only qualifier was aged 18 years or older.
Like, that's not very scientific.
That's the dumbest thing. And now you're reporting this as fact. It's just, what you've done there is done something completely pointless and arm your critics. Way to go. Because it's not just the answers that are important. It's how you found them and where they came from.
The thing that's always interesting to me, a lot of times when I'm doing a project and I just finished a project, and sometimes I think I know how a project's going to go, or I know what the data is going to look like. And inevitably I'm surprised. I think that something's going to be up and I find out it's going to be down. Or I find out it's down. I find something that's going to be up significantly, and I find it's just up a trickle. So I'm very careful, JB, not to apply my own biases. Apparently, and see, one of the things I used to tell everybody was I'd sit in a meeting, and people would give me their opinions, or they give me their examples. They tell me what they do and all that. I'm going to tell you one of my first rules of researching and data: don't use yourself as an example for anything. Because guess what? You're not. You're a sample of one, most likely out of the demographic traffic zone. So you're not, you're just giving me some anecdotal information and applying that or assuming that as fact. It's not. It's an anecdotal, I walk into a meeting, a CEO tells me, I have a bunch of these stories, but a CEO from a big sporting goods company, I won't mention the name, and a great guy, by the way. I walked in and, he had his sales managers with him. He was CEO. He had a whole bunch of people. And they're talking about this new baseball bat and how it's like flying off the shelves and all that. And I says, well, let me ask you a question. If this thing is flying off the shelves and selling so well, here's the top 50 selling baseball bats according to my company. I used to work for a company that collected point of sales data. I don't see one of those bats in the top 50. Now, don't you think if this thing was flying off the shelves, I would see at least one, or at least one, have sales? And he looked at his sales managers. He looked at his, distribution guys. He looked at his marketing team. It's like, what's going on here? How come I'm not seeing this? Well, we've had a little problem getting the bats out of the warehouse and getting them to the various retailers. We've had some issue, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? All of a sudden, his claim that this bat was flying off the shelves, all of a sudden wasn't, it wasn't true. It was, what he did? He walked into one sporting goods store in his town. He asked the manager about it. Manager said, yeah, we got our shipment a couple of weeks ago and they're selling really well. So he assumed that just because that one manager got his shipment and is selling really well, that's what's going on across the entire country.
I bet he felt silly.
No, I mean, you know what? In the beginning, he was a little mad at me, but then he actually called me and said, you know what? You were right. He said, you were right for what you did. He said, I know it was a little embarrassing, especially to my people, and I'm not in the business of embarrassing anybody. That's not what I want to do. I love it. I want to help. You know what? I want to sell my data. I don't want, I don't want people to run the other way.
And I'm sitting in Wales.
Well, what can I tell you?
I want to ask you about. I think we'll come back to. Some data stuff. But I want you to talk a bit about your. So you've got a podcast of your own, right?
I do.
And there's something that you're very, very passionate about.
Yes, extremely.
And we spoke a little bit about this before I hit record, but so you stop me if I'm wrong. Your podcast is called My First Job in Sports.
It is.
Okay, and so listeners, viewers, what Neil is passionate about is getting young people started in the sports industry. That doesn't mean he's not like placing people in jobs. He's just providing them with the information to go and sort their shit out themselves, which is the way that it should be done. Let's face it.
I've been in the sports business 25 years, JP, and it's given me a wonderful living. I mean, I've been lucky enough to go to a lot of great sporting events. I've gotten a lot of free stuff, which is fun too. And it's been a great business. I really have enjoyed it. Again, and it's fun. You know what? I decided when I bought SBRnet back in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. People thought I was crazy, by the way. But I decided then and there that in addition to running my business and being profitable, look, I'm a capitalist at heart. But I wanted to pay it forward. I wanted something that I could put into my kind of legacy folder at the end of the day or at the end of my career that says, you know what? I made money. I had a good living. I supported my family well, but I also was able to help the next generation of, people coming up in the industry. And you're right. I'm not going to place people in jobs. That's not what I do. But what's the best way to learn how to get a job is to learn from the people that already have them. And that's what My First Job in Sports is all about. We have been able to bring in amazing guests from all different sides of the sports business, whether it's a brand, retail, footwear, convention and visitors bureaus. I interviewed a wonderful woman from Titleist and FootJoy Golf Company, Andrea Lattimore, who had the most nonlinear story in how she got to the golf business. But let me tell you, there is no bigger evangelist almost for the golf business, but not to play golf, to encourage students to get into the business of golf, because there's just so much opportunity there, and look, I think it's very important. I have some messages that I like to tell students a lot of times. Number one is that I tell every student, say yes to everything. Don't say no to, you can say no anytime you want. You can't say yes anytime you want. If somebody comes to you and they say, are you interested? Your answer is yes. And then you go down the road and you decide whether or not it's going to be right for you or not. But your initial answer is always yes. Then the other thing I always tell people is that, keep that resume polished up, ready to go at a moment's notice. And inevitably I ask also people, I said, do you practice your personal elevator pitch? They're like, huh? I said, just remember one thing. You have 30 seconds to make a good first impression. So when I walk up to somebody, I know that I've got to make a good first impression in 30 seconds. If you can't do that, you're not going to make a good first impression. And your chances of being able to get a job, continue on with the conversation, make a new contact, all those things are going to diminish. So I talk to people about learning how to make a good elevator pitch on themselves. And, it works.
No, that is a good skill. So I was just thinking while you were talking. So, I mean, I've been working in publishing for 33 years, I think.
Right.
And it's incredibly unlikely that anybody would get started in publishing in the way that I did, not least because of how the world's changed in 33 fucking years.
Well, nobody reads anymore.
So I'm told. But what I've found, what I've noticed over the years, is that there are very few working class voices in publishing, in writing, in journalism. And so I've always tried to encourage people like me, basically. And for me, it's just giving up a bit of time or giving somebody a bit of feedback, or if I've interviewed them for a position, giving them proper feedback, giving them actual time and saying, look, here's where you can improve, here's where you can don't give up. Or, finding some money to give them a little commission so that they've got something on their CV that says,
I do that all the time.
To fucking do this. But it's
all the time.
It's enormously difficult without people who take that time, without people who have that passion or see that problem.
Yes.
Like, from my perspective, if journalism is solely fucking middle class voices, all we're going to read is middle class news. You bet. I don't give two fucks about problems with wine being imported. And that skews what we learn. That skews how we see the world. That skews
how we see everything. I mean, the other thing is, over my shoulder or over my head is a kind of a little blurry poster called "Get in the Game," and "Get in the Game" is a company that my company does. It actually is like son of my first job in sports, but Get in the Game is focused on helping students of color get jobs in the sports business. I sit around conference room tables all the time, seeing more and more women around the table. Hey, that is good. That is good. But I'm still not seeing a lot of faces of color. That is not good. Remember, if you want that 360-degree perspective, you got to have a 360-degree perspective, not a 260-degree or 280 degrees. You need the full gamut. And if, close to 30% of the United States is made up of persons non-white, whether Hispanic, Asian, African-American, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but you need to have those things represented around the table, because again, you want to be able to make a decision that's going to be closer to the end consumer. And if you don't have anybody in the room that's close to the end consumer, guess what? You're just going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again. I think Albert Einstein said, what do you say? That doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result was one man's definition of insanity or something like that. I butchered that quote, but that's okay.
No, I've seen that quote attributed to a few people, but I do believe it's probably true. And also, don't worry about offending people. I find that as long as you offend everybody, it's generally okay.
Yeah, no, I can't. Well, we live in strange times, JB, and we live in. We really do. People take things personally that they used to never take personally, and people respond and react to things they never used to react to, and
people just want
and it makes things tough. It makes it. I mean, here's an example actually from my personal experience. So look, we've been on this call now for 44 minutes, actually almost 45. I'm a pretty friendly guy, and all that. I have to admit, when I know someone like in the business, it's not unusual for me, like a woman in particular, to give them a hug when I see them. And there are some women that I have known for a long time who I give them a kiss on the cheek when I see them. Now, I always wonder, am I doing the wrong thing in the times that we now live in? And after I've done it, I have walked up to them and said, did I make a mistake here? Did I offend you? I'm like, no, because you and I don't have a handshake friendship. You and I have known each other a long time. You and I have done business before. I consider you not just a business relationship, but a friend. So you know what? But a lot of people don't know what to do anymore. Handshaking, fist bumping, hugging. I'm a hugger. I mean, I like to hug. What can I tell you?
I grab people's butt cheeks.
Well, okay. You might not want to do too much of that, but
no. But regardless of gender, that's the key.
Okay. My grandson, who happens to be sitting right here, by the way, he's 11 years old. He's a really smart kid. He says he just looked up. He heard me talking. He said the definition of insanity is doing something over and over again and expecting a different result. That's the Albert Einstein. It was Albert Einstein. So I just got fact checked in real time by my 11-year-old grandson. His name is Ashton. He's talking, but I know you can't hear him.
Just say from me, Ashton, you're grounded.
Ashton, nice job. And JB said you're grounded to put your computer away.
So this is a slight sidestep here, right?
Yep.
We were. You might hear my cat now. He's.
That's okay. I thought you heard my 11-year-old grandson.
I want to see my cat's much louder.
If your cat talks, though, we're done with the call.
You have no idea what this cat's like. No, I was thinking, right? So an argument Fintan and I had a year or two ago. I think we had Steve Ruddock on the show, and we were talking about FanDuel, DraftKings.
Yes.
And at that point, Fanatics was looking.
Yes.
About to do something, right? And I said,
yes,
I think Fanatics will eat market share from the other two.
No question.
Simple reason that they can offer something that the others can't, and that is they're coming into this with a partly different database to market to, but that they can incentivize in a completely different way because they've got retail outlets
yes,
and things that sports fans are interested in.
Yes.
And I was poo-pooed. I was shouted down.
By your partner?
Yeah.
Kind of wrong.
Like,
it was kind of wrong. Yeah.
Well, I still stand, and they haven't done badly by any stretch of the imagination. Sometimes businesses go into sports betting or whatever, and they do badly because they're doing a shitty job, not because they didn't have the tools.
Well, there's over 33 million Americans currently are betting on sports. And I have to say, over the last 2 years, it's kind of flattened out a little bit. One of the reasons is that the number of states here in the United States that have allowed online gambling, it's kind of slowed down right now. I think there's a total of 29 states here in the U.S. that allow online gambling. I think there are 4 or 5 more that have voted it in, but they are not up and running yet. They've got, issues or whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, the sports gambling business, JB, has lived off of what I like to call the low-hanging fruit for quite some time. The interesting thing is the 23 to 24 data should be a little bit of an indicator about what they can expect once all the low-hanging fruit is gone. Unfortunately, I think that sports gambling is going to play what they call a zero-sum game eventually. And that means as someone grows, someone goes. So somebody's going to gain market share at the expense of somebody else. They're not actually going to bring new gamblers in. It's going to be a zero-sum game. The other problem is, JB, and I don't want to get outside of the lines here for me, but I'm a little bit concerned about the amount of online gambling done by underaged people. Yeah. About 4% of all sports gambling is done by underaged people, so approximately 120,000, but that's a lot in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's a worry. I mean, number one, science has said that, that the adult brain is not fully formed or fully developed till between 24 and 25 years of age. You've got gambling companies that are offering free money. Hey, put $50 in your account and we'll match it, 4 times if you win. Yeah. I hate to say it, but the 20-year-old kid, the 18-year-old kid, the 19-year-old kid with access to his parents' credit card and a fake ID, guess what? He just found himself a great way to make money. Before, a lot of these kids would do the stock market. But now they're using sports gambling as their mechanism for making extra money. And, it troubles me a little bit. And the whole sports gambling thing troubles me a little bit. I'm getting on my soapbox here a little bit. And unfortunately, also, I'm butting up against time. But I don't know if you saw this being, you're in Wales, but the NCAA, that's the organization that runs college sports here in the United States.
Yep.
Not very well, I might add. They just allowed college students to gamble on professional sports. Dude, did anybody think that through? Or did they just decide, hey, we're just going to do. Did anybody really think that through? I would love to find out, because you know what? That may be the second.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
sorry, Neil.
Go ahead.
But presumably, college students that are over the legal gambling age in whatever state that they're in, it's not
21.
Okay, so it's not just any students. It's but
Well,
previously,
but
if
you got
you're
a fake
student,
ID, you got your mother and dad's credit card. Guess what? It's all you need.
I mean, there were issues just waiting in US sports betting.
Yes.
That have come up, but
Yes.
all of this could have been tackled way sooner. Like
Yes.
all of the athlete scandals, they should have been way ahead of that. Like the pro
Yes.
and the
Absolutely right.
Should have been way ahead of that. The athlete abuse thing, like, it's weird because, Northern Europe and most of the rest of the world, or large chunks of the rest of the world, we've got mature gambling markets.
Yes.
And athlete abuse generally doesn't have anything to do with gambling. It's just because we're horrible people.
Well, how do you know? I mean, how do you know the guy sitting on the bench for, I don't know, maybe not one of the, maybe not Man United or Man City, but, maybe one of the lesser teams, Sherwood Forest or one of the other teams, who's not making, 20 million euros a year or actually 20 million pounds, whatever. But my point is, see, that's what I think. I think there's, unfortunately, sports gambling preys on the have-nots. And unfortunately, the have-nots are the ones that could drive it, fix a game. Or, I talk about a lot of things like, you've got here in the United States, a bunch of linemen for a college team were getting $50,000 in NIL money from their universities, but the second team guys are getting, $5,000. So the first team guys are driving nice cars, they're eating in nicer restaurants, they have cuter girlfriends, goes on and on. So what happens when the guy gets in, and maybe a gambler has gotten to him? All of a sudden the center centers the ball over the quarterback's head a few times. Guess what? All of a sudden the complexion of a game has changed. I worry about the credibility of sports based on sports gambling. I really do.
No, that's fair. Especially given the structure of college sports, the structure and status and visibility of college sports in the US. That's the big difference. College sports in the college sports in the UK or in any European country, nobody would have a fucking clue what you're talking about.
No, it's not a thing really in the UK.
Really not. But you've got the Rose Bowl and all of that jazz, and it's all part of the same razzmatazz, isn't it? But it's like when I say like athlete abuse, like when people are shouting at games, "You lost my fucking bet." I'll send in DMs saying, "I'm going to cut you, you motherfucker. You didn't score or whatever." Like that stuff. Like we're abusive just because we're awful people, not because of the gambling. And I think that don't get me wrong, I'm sure it does happen.
Isn't it both? Isn't it kind of a cause and effect kind of sort of thing? I'm a shitty person. I lost my bet and I become even shittier.
In these mature betting markets, I don't think there's the same individual blame on the athletes.
There was an interesting article I saw. I wish I could pull it up, but I can't. But that's enough. That the Philippines, of all places, has recognized they've got a big sports gambling problem. That citizens are just betting way out of their comfort zone and all that. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but I was kind of interested with that. I said, you know what? Is that a harbinger of what might be the heading here in the United States? Granted, it's the Philippines, but is that going to be what's going to happen here in the United States in 3 years, 5 years? I don't know. Hey, JB, I'm running up against my time, but this has been an unbelievable discussion. I would love to come back and do this again.
I'm hoping
I really
we'll
would.
have Fintan next time because he is
Yeah.
our nerd.
I need a nerd. I need a nerd to talk nerdy stuff. I get all nerdy and get all geeky. My daughter loves to call me the oldest living data nerd. And I am. I love data. I love being a nerd. I am who I am.
He's your man,
So-
but unfortunately, he's laid up in bed and he's
Oh.
just he's got
well.
well, he calls it flu.
Maybe he's got COVID.
I certainly hope so.
I'm not wishing it on him. But maybe he got COVID.
Like I said, you got to piss everybody off or nobody.
So let me just tell people, if they want to learn a little bit more about the business, it's SBRnet.com. And, a lot of the data that we've been talking about, unfortunately, is behind the paywall. So in order to see it, you got to pay for it. But there is a lot of data that's in front of the paywall also. So, don't hesitate to go on there, look around. You can't break it. Hit me up on socials. We're on LinkedIn at SBRnet. I'm on Instagram, SBRnet Data, and I'm on Twitter and X, and I still can't figure out why, because I can't figure out what Twitter and X actually are these days. But my social media person does post on Twitter. I think I have like 65 followers on Twitter. So you know what? I don't think anybody's gonna. I'm not gonna worry about it.
Right, 65. I've one quick question based on what you just said. SBRnet.com. Were you not tempted to register SBR.net?
Somebody actually had it. And the interesting thing is that somebody actually owns the SBRnet domain, not me. And we had to kind of do a little fancy internet dipsy doodle to be able to kind of access it. I mean, it's a long story, but I own it now and I have it now and it's me. So but most people also access us. The one thing that we do is that we sell a lot of data into colleges and universities, sports management, sports marketing, sports, all those related to sports. It's become a big thing here in colleges. Over 550 schools here in the U.S. offer some type of sports management program, sports marketing, something sports. So they use our data to help students learn how to use data, and it's live, it's fresh, it's new. It's, so all the things that you need. So I have an awful lot of colleges and universities using my data. So I have a different actual URL for that side of my business. So it's sportsmarketanalytics.com. But, SBRnet gets you where you need to go.
Okay.
Thank you, JB. Thank you very much for the time today. Thanks very much to my 11-year-old grandson sitting to my right.
Ashton, grounded.
Ashton, I just said you're grounded. He looked at me and he just gave you the finger. He's walking over.
Now he's grounded till he's 25.
Go subscribe to APH1124 on YouTube.
Cut that out, please.
Go do it, please.
Neil,
I don't get paid enough to do it.
We never cut anything out.
Okay, well then I guess you're in.
I don't get paid enough to edit my videos.
Yeah, he's got his own YouTube channel. He
233 subscribers.
And counting.
All under the age of 11.
Go subscribe.
All right, JP, thank you very much for the time today. I really enjoyed it.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Gambling Files podcast, please find us on LinkedIn. Give us a big, juicy, succulent like. That nearly went wrong. You can find us under the name The Gambling Files Podcast. You can find us on Twitter under The Gambling Files. I think the handle is just @GamblingFiles. You can connect to myself, John Bruford, or Fintan Costello, also on LinkedIn. We're also both on Twitter. And you can find all of our previous episodes at www.thegamblingfiles.com. If you enjoyed it, please share. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues, and we'll see you next time.